The Federal Reserve has officially raised interest rates once again for the 10th time in a little bit over a year, and this time specifically by 0.25%. Of course, this is something that most people know because it's been all over the headlines and breaking news. But what I don't think a lot of people are talking about right now is the significance of this, about why this particularly matters. So in today's video, what I really want to share is just the breaking news outline to what's been happening inside of the world of just our economy in general. And then I want to also probably even more in greater details talk about the significance about this. So even if you've seen another video, hopefully there's still something original to take out of this video, because this is definitely going to be something that's going to impact a lot of different things that's actually very, very important to the majority of us. Things such as like interest rates, inflation, the cost of goods is going to be impacted. So when we buy things on a regular basis, how much we have to pay for our groceries, bills, everything in that world. Certainly, if you are someone that follows the stock market and even things such as like the housing market, everything, or just certainly a lot of things in our economy and everything that's been going on there is going to be impacted. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. So with that being said, let's just get this video started. But as always, the same drill. If you guys enjoy videos like this, remember to smash the like button, consider subscribing, hitting the bell for similar videos. I'll put videos at the end screen that talks about other topics about our economy as well. And with that being said, let's get this video rolling. So as just mentioned, is that the Federal Reserve has officially raised interest rates once again, this time by 0.25% for the 10th time in a little bit over a year, bringing now the whole federal fund rate to be right around 5 to 5.25%. Many signals that this is basically the end of the interest rate increases, and from here it's not going to necessarily drop going forward from here, but it's going to stagnate at this 5 to 5.25% rate, and they're basically going to stay like that for several months until inflation is controlled, and then they're going to pivot and start to drop interest rates once again. So many people believe that this is going to be the final time they're going to raise interest rates. It's really, really hard to call right now and relatively early, because this is still the early stages, not the early stages of but the early stages of the pivot. It's not the early stages of the increases in interest rates, but it is the early stages of when they're going to specifically pivot and start to drop rates once again. So the question now is really becomes, when is this pivot actually going to specifically occur? Because this is definitely going to be something that's going to influence a lot of different things, because between now and when that pivot happens, whether this pivot ends up happening before the end of this year or whether it ends up happening next year, there's going to be a lot of changes and things that are going to be happening inside of our economy between now and then. And so how healthy our economy goes, whether or not inflation runs out of control, whether or not we go into stagflation. I know there's been some YouTubers that have been talking a little bit about that. All of this stuff is going to be determined depending on how everything now unfolds between now and when that specifically ends up happening. This is especially true because right now there is a massive urgency inside of our banking system, where we are already starting to see a lot of banks start to collapse or on the verge of collapsing. Obviously, we already made a video that talks about 3 of the banks that ended up collapsing, specifically Silicon Valley Bank. I forgot the third one, but I know Silicon Valley Bank, First Republic Bank, and there was one more. I think it started with an S or something like that. I'll have to get back onto it. But the big idea is that banks are collapsing, and this is very, very big, because this is going to put a dangerment into a lot of the money that we currently have inside. Most of us are going to be safe because, as we just mentioned in a lot of past videos, most of these banks are FDIC insured for up to $250,000, but it is still going to impact a lot of the other ones because there are businesses that we work for, so businesses and companies that we potentially can get employed, which we're going to talk about the job market in a little bit and how this is going to impact unemployment. But the big idea is that it's still going to indirectly impact a lot of us and how we end up living our everyday lives. But of course, I did already make several videos, which I'm going to put at the very, very end screen. I believe the name of the video is literally just called Danger or Breaking News or Beware or something like that, because it talks a lot more in details about the bank collapse. So of course, that's going to be the focus of that video. So highly recommend checking that, and huge thanks if you guys have already done so. But now moving on to maybe talking about the golden topic of unemployment and the job market. So the story right now is that this is definitely going to be very, very impactful to things related to unemployment in the job market, specifically because as they raise interest rates, many companies, especially in certain sectors such as like the tech industry, are actually in a lot of debt right now. There's startup companies, specifically small tech companies, that are operating on a lot of different debt that they have to pay off, but they're using it to hopefully try to make a turnaround in the future in order to pay off their debt and then start to make a profit and turn around. However, between now and then, they're in debt. And I think that's the most important thing, because as they raise the interest rates, it means that they're going to be falling into even further debt, which means that their actual business is also their profit margins, their business, how much money they're making, their ability to continue running, investors that invest in these companies, all of that stuff is going to be very, very influential. So why this is actually very influential specifically for the job market and unemployment is that because if the interest rates start to increase as well, it means that these businesses are also going to start to suffer and struggle through a lot of difficult moments. And I even feel it in my own industry, because as most people know is that outside of this, I work in the entertainment, events, and live film industry, so I definitely feel it right there. But again, it's going to extend to a lot of other industries like tech, real estate, manufacturing. All of those industries are definitely going to be influenced. And again, everything in the economy at the end of the day is relatively tied together. So as one industry falls, it becomes a domino for a lot of other industries to potentially follow alongside as well. So what this basically means is that as these companies start to struggle, they're not going to be able to hire as many people. And if they're not able to hire as many people, it means that the job market is going to definitely struggle and unemployment is very likely going to increase. Now, it is very, very interesting because recently, if you guys are watching this right around release date, the jobs report did recently come out, and it was actually pretty good, but there's a lot of speculation right now that those numbers might be relatively misleading. We're going to make another video likely and talk a little bit more in greater details about that, so definitely consider subscribing if you guys are brand new here. Feel free to leave a comment about what you currently think about this current situation, because there's a lot of controversial and mixed opinions, some saying this is really good, some saying this is relatively bad, and then within those people that say it's good and bad, the degree of how good it is and how bad it really is. And then there's just a lot of opinions and a little bit of a gray area where it's like it's good in some ways and then it's also bad in other ways. But of course, this is something that's very, very up to debate. So definitely feel free to leave a comment if you guys have any particular opinions about this situation. But in terms of where we currently stand in the situation, there are really two schools of thought. Some people are really focused about the job market. I know, for example, a lot of our Democratic leaders, again, leaving politics aside, just, because objectively it's speaking, this is what's happening. A lot of our Democratic leaders are trying to prioritize the job market and trying to keep people employed. So as a result, because of that reason, a lot of them are actually against these interest rate hikes. On another hand, you have a lot of other politicians right now that are in favor of these interest rate hikes because they're a lot more focused about the economy. It's going to tank the economy, but it's going to control inflation. So it really just depends on what you particularly value more. That's why feel free to leave a comment, because it is very controversial and there's a lot of mixed opinions right now about it. If you value the job market and keeping people employed, you probably will side on that side. If you are someone that focuses a lot more on inflation, you'd rather keep prices low, then you're probably siding with the other side. But the idea is that there's just a lot of mixed opinions and it's very, very complicated. Now, in terms of where do we go from here and what are the goals of our, politicians, our leaders, our economic leaders, and everyone that's, out there, is that there's a lot of mixed goals depending on what each politician, each figure, each person out there really values. But right now, at this current particular time, the big idea is that they all universally want to control inflation. They just have different priorities to what it's going to take in order to control inflation and, you know, all of the situation that's happening right now. The goal right now is that we started at about 7%. Inflation right now is currently sitting at about 4.6%, and they're trying to get it to be right around 2%, or at least that's the goal right now inside of the Federal Reserve. Jerome Powell obviously is, you know, being put on, you know, a lot of responsibility right now to help control the inflation and situation. But of course, all of this stuff, we just have to see what happens in one of the future episodes of The Kevin Show, and also in terms of what happens in future episodes of the news, because the news is what we're going to have to follow to see where this all unfolds going forward from here. And of course, the next meeting, which I believe is right around June 14th, June 15th, that's when they're going to have further announcements about whether or not they're going to increase it even further, or if they're going to take a pause, which is the anticipation to what's happening right now. But of course, all of this stuff, like mentioned, we're going to have to see. So definitely consider subscribing if you guys are brand new here for more. So with that being said, if you guys made it to the end, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you guys enjoyed that, remember to smash the like button to share some support. Consider leaving a comment about honestly just really anything, even if you wanted to say hi. It's great to hear people out there. And with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, try to stay employed, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.